This company's never been more profitable.
You mean hugely profitable?
I like it.
DavePorter.com presents The Profitable Cleaner, a podcast on commercial cleaning sales and entrepreneurship. The one podcast that's not afraid to discuss real sales strategies with real cleaning professionals that produce real profits and real results.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Profitable Cleaner podcast. I'm your host today, James Harper. We're going to have a surprise guest potentially later. My co-host, Angel Sandoval, may or may not be jumping into this show a little bit late, but Angel and I don't matter today. I'm so excited to speak with Jean Marie with Shore to Shore Cleaning out in New York. Jean Marie, man, just from the 5-minute conversation we just had, I can't wait for today's episode. How are you doing today? Doing well. For the people listening right now that don't know Jean Marie, don't know Shore to Shore, give us the Jean Marie story. I know you have a story, especially with the 5 minutes we just spoke about. I want to start from day uno. What's the Shore to Shore story, and how did you get into this business?
So the actual name of Shore to Shore was not planned, which is interesting because everyone's like, oh, that is so smart for where we live. And I'm like, it wasn't my intention. I went for like Rubber Duck or something, or Squeaky. It was one of those like gay ones, right? Like for a cheesy name. But I didn't know any better. I have no background in business. And I went down, I applied for it, and it got denied. And I'm like arguing with the woman. I'm like, we have to find this. And I'm going through all these options. And I'm on the phone with my first ever employee. And I'm like, the name doesn't work. We need a backup plan because even plan B and plan C don't work. What are we doing? What are we doing? And we're brainstorming. And like, I sat there and I paused for a minute and I was like, we're on an island, like Shore to Shore. And the woman's like, that's actually available. And that's where the actual name Shore to Shore Cleaning came from. But so there's a little fun fact. But how I got into cleaning was I cleaned a little bit in high school. Before high school, so I grew up, my mom had a stroke when I was 7. I was 7. From drugs when I was 7. She got sober when I was 9, but because of the stroke and the brain damage, if she put this here, it had to stay here. Because if you moved it here, now she didn't know where it was. So my house was chaotic and crazy and whatever, and I would find like that internal peace and comfort in cleaning whenever I could. And that kind of just stuck with me. So I got jobs cleaning in high school, made some bad choices of my own, had some babies, made more bad choices of my own. And around the age of 24, I was forced into a corner to make some better decisions. And part of me turning my life around was I got a job at Dunkin' Donuts, and there was a woman that came in covered in bleach all the time. And I was like, hey, you clean houses. If your boss ever needs help, I have experience. And she's like, okay. And I didn't really think anything of it until 2 weeks later, this woman, she's like, hi, are you Jean Marie? I heard you're looking to help me clean. I was like, yeah. So that became my second job. I was at Dunkin' Donuts. I was cleaning houses for her. And then I got a job catering to pay for Christmas. So I'm working 3 jobs. And it was insanity, and I would see the money she was making, and I would also see that, like, she didn't work Saturdays, and she wanted this time off, and I'm like, but I'll work. Like, I didn't have a driver's license at the time because I lost it because of a car accident that I was in, so I had to lose my license for a while. But I was like, get it. If I'll Uber there, I'll take a cab, because I don't even think Uber was a thing 9 years ago, or at least I didn't know about it. I was like, I'll get there, just get the work, and I'll do it. Don't ever say anything. No, I'll work a holiday. I need the money. Stop turning away work. And she wouldn't stop turning it away. So then I respectfully asked her, like, hey, if you won't pick up the work, am I crossing boundaries with you? I don't want to lose my job if I start picking up work on my own. Which I wish my employees showed me that same respect, because I've had people that are like, oh, I'm going to try and steal your account. Don't do that. Just ask me. I'll ask you. Like, I was given that opportunity. I would never deny anybody else that. But so I started picking up accounts, and next thing I knew, I had 15 accounts, and I thought I hit the jackpot. And I was like, hey, you're you're seasonal, really. She was year round, but it was primary summer. We have like the Hamptons type clientele out here. And I was like, so when your summer season ends, how do you feel about parting ways? I was due to get my license back the first week of October. So I paid somebody to drive me all summer long while I did my jobs one day a week, like all 15 houses on a Friday, in a car with no air conditioning. Oh my God, it was so gross. But we did it. And we would run through 15 houses in a day. And eventually I was getting my license back and me and her parted ways. And October 9th, I opened Treasure Cleaning.
Man, look at that. I got to dive into the story before we talk cleaning a little bit more, because I think there's a lot of comeback kid stories in cleaning, which is what I love. So my co-host and business partner, Angel Sandoval, we connected originally because he said one sentence that I've latched to. And he said, sales saved my life. And it was, for us, we come from the sales industry, from the sales game. And since being in janitorial and just the cleaning industry in general, I've heard all these amazing comeback stories, and it sounds like you might have one. So I'm going to ask a few questions. How old were you when you first had your first kid? You said you got into some trouble, and then it almost sounds like cleaning kind of entered your life and helped become part of the turnaround, the comeback. Just talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe part of society. I graduated high school 7 months pregnant, which is really cool, and I get very emotional about it right now. I'm not an emotional person, but this one event hits me. That child that I gave birth to 2 months out of high school is graduating high school a year early in 2 months, and odds were not in our favor for that to happen.
Yeah.
And considering the first 6.5 years of her life, I was a complete fuck up. And I lost custody twice. I lost custody when she was 2 months old, and I got her back when she was 4. At that point, I already had her sister, or she was 3. I got her back just to lose custody again of both of them because I couldn't get my ducks in a row and my shit together. And so at 6, I lost her for a second time, and I got her back. I think she was 8 or 9 when she was with me permanently thereafter. But considering all the damage that I created and all the poor choices this child was exposed to, the fact that she's on track to graduate high school at 16 years old and already has her plan in place because I'm able to provide her that structure and that security, yeah, we're going to support you going to cosmetology for a year, and then you can, instead of going to your senior year and then go to college for a nursing degree to work with kids, sure. And that's never an opportunity I even thought I could have even chosen for myself, let alone my children. But so I had her at 18, I had her sister at 19. And I got involved with drinking and drugs and stuff like that, and I was homeless at 23. I lost my kids on my 24th birthday. The second time I lost them, it was my 24th birthday. I immediately became homeless that same day. They went to go live with my mom. My dad kicked me out because we were living with him. And I bopped around from place to place for 4 months until I ended up in jail. And then going to jail is what got me sober. So.
And then that led to Dunkin' Donuts, and then that led to cleaning?
This isn't a sobriety podcast, but what I did was, instead of drinking and drugs to numb myself, I became addicted to making money.
Yeah, totally.
So I needed to make money. I needed to fix that. And so I had a very scrappy, maybe not legal mindset for a while. And somebody was like, you have to go get a job, a real job. And I was like, I'm not working for $7 an hour. Sorry, not doing it. And I was hustling and doing what I had to do. And as soon as I would make money, I would spend it. Dunkin' Donuts was the first honest money I'd made in a long time. So when I got a job at Dunkin' Donuts for $7 an hour, I actually started to pay child support, pay off my traffic tickets, and I got involved in I can work with people and I could talk to people. I can have conversations with other human beings that have all their teeth. Like people who know.
Yeah, totally.
And it got me into that, and that's how I got uncomfortable to ask for the job with the cleaning company.
I think that's amazing. And anyone listening to this, you guys probably have a piece of your story. Maybe it wasn't legal, maybe it wasn't drinking or drugs, but it was some sort of challenge that forced you to, make a switch. I tell people all the time, like, I got my public speaking skills, if we even want to say I have public speaking skills, in the rooms of AA meetings, like literally like hosting AA meetings, because I have a similar story of sobriety. So like I relate to your story a lot. And I think it's awesome that you've channeled that now into a transformation of the new Jean Marie, which has become a wonderful mother. Daughter's about to graduate early. And now you've also channeled it into entrepreneurship. So let's talk about those early days. So the reason why, too, I'm really curious to talk to you, kind of going more industry specific here. You said you have like a 7-figure residential cleaning business, which is badass, but you also do commercial cleaning. A lot of people listening to this are in those shoes. They either have large commercial accounts and they're exclusively commercial, or they started just like you. They just started hustling and cleaning houses and then realized, the office building down the street needs cleaning. I already cleaned 50 houses. I can do the office building. So I want to talk early residential days. You got those 15 accounts. When did you really start kind of transforming into just being a do-it-all cleaner to an actual business? What did that transformation look like?
The transformation from like running my own it got messy when I got pregnant. So I opened up the company in October. In April, I was pregnant. And the universe has a sense of humor with that. And I was like, okay. And I worked until 2 weeks before I gave birth. There's pictures of me covered in grease and bleach, 9 months pregnant, standing on people's kitchen counters, cleaning the tops of their kitchen cabinets. What's interesting is I would clean for other women who were 8 months pregnant with my big belly, and I'm like using my knee and hopping on. They're like, "You're gonna go into labor." I was like, "Don't worry, she's like a registered nurse from when she was in the army. She's got this. She'll deliver my baby." Like one of my employees that worked for me, but we did that, and it shifted me into like now being pregnant. Like I had to have employees in place I had to have employees in place because I was going to have to give birth. Like I couldn't avoid the birth part, right? And so I'm like, I'll be out for 2 weeks and I'll be back. Well, my son was born with a lot of medical conditions, and I sat in hospitals and doctor's offices for the first 8 months of his life, basically. And again, it wasn't pretty, but like then I had to hire more people because I wasn't returning to work. That savings I built didn't exist. Like I needed them to pay my bills, right? And so I started doing that. And then like by the time I returned to work, I had 2 full crews running. It wasn't just like my jobs. And we lost a lot, but we gained a lot. And we gained a lot of experience. And I learned what not to do from a managerial standpoint, right? Like I learned a lot about what not to do and what not to allow. And it's not okay if they're 10 minutes late every day, because then the whole team is 25 minutes late forever. And now you have to lie and tell them to come at 8, so they're at a job at 9. Like, and this is all things I didn't know. So that's how, and then slowly the business, and we operated like that for a little bit, and eventually my accountant was like, "Hey, you can't operate as a DBA anymore. You have to go open either an LLC or an S corp." And with my lawyer's advice, I went for the S corp route. I know a lot of people to go for LLCs, but I went and I opened an S corp, and sure became official, and I got the EIN number and all that other stuff, and we just continued to grow. And it was like every year for the first couple of years. After that, like I went from like 2 crews to 3 crews to 4 crews. There was a point post COVID where I was able to get 6 crews out.
Now, when you say crew, how many people is that?
For a while, it was 3. Now we're down to 2-man crews, and they're running more efficiently. But again, a lot of what not to do. I would have 19 cleaners out a day at one point.
Nice. All in the residential game. And I think people listening to this, like residential is a good way to make your first dollar in the cleaning industry, but it's also really hard to scale. And now I know like you're doing like close to or maybe even more than 7 figures in residential, and a lot of residential companies do not get there, and you only get there with people. And that's what, it's hard to do. And we're going to transition into a little bit of commercial talk here, but I have a few questions on the residential side. Not every day I get to speak to someone that has the experience you do. One, how did you find the right people to hire in your crews and to go out there? How do you vet people? How do you hire people?
So a lot of who I hire in recovery, I was a single mom with no license, and a woman gave me a shot, right? A woman gave her barista a job. That's what it came down to.
Yeah.
Someone I'd never met before. And as I worked for her, I became her first full-time employee before we parted ways, by the way. She never had a full-time employee. She had a bunch of part-time seasonal workers, and then she cleaned the off months, and I became her first year-round full-time employee. And she gave me a shot. So I've used that model to help other women, and it's a big part of my hiring. And I don't do a lot of like marketing for employees. I'm very big in the recovery community. I have over 10 years sober now. People know who I am. They know that I operate a cleaning company. And if I'm 100% honest, I don't care if you have a felony.
Yeah, totally.
I don't care if you have a felony. I'll hire you with a felony. If you have armed robbery, maybe we're going to talk, right? Or burglary, like stuff like that, that's questionable. You got kilos of drugs, I don't really care, right? Like, that's like old stuff. It's from a decade ago, whatever. I changed my whole life around. Other people can too. The majority of my staff has long-term recovery, but I hire them at 4, 6, 8 months sober. And they had a license and no car, or they didn't have a license. And I would go and I would get a lawyer and I'd help them clean up their license. And then I would let them drive company cars until they saved and bought their own, right? And like we've done that, and I've cycled it, and I've built a really solid culture around that. And then I have some Hispanic women that work for me, and it's the same thing. Like I pay for them to go back to school to learn English. I learned that from a woman, Diana, who owns a cleaning company in New Jersey.
Wonderful woman, Babco Services. Yeah. She's one of our most popular shows on this podcast, and yeah, she's fucking phenomenal. So
yeah. She shared about it cleaning cocktails last year. I was like mind blown, right? And I started putting them in school, and they're like so grateful. So now I do that, and I hired a VA who speaks English and Spanish. I don't have time to learn Spanish, nor do I have a desire. But I have a desire to communicate with Spanish people. So I have 2 VAs, and they translate and communicate everything for me. They do all my interviews. They do all of it.
Yep, and, absolutely. Hey, I want to dive in here a little bit because you're talking my language. So our entire team is built out in Nicaragua, and people that routinely listen to our show are very familiar that, like, just this year alone, we've placed 23 sales development reps, operations managers, and recruiting managers inside cleaning companies, and they're all in Nicaragua. So I want to talk about virtualizing your business a little bit. Okay. One, I'd be curious to learn more about how you found, like where your VAs are from, because all of ours are bilingual too, and it's been a really big competitive advantage for us. A lot of people hire VAs in the Philippines and India, which is awesome. I believe those people deserve a shot, but in the cleaning industry, it can kind of get messy because there is so much bilingual necessity that it's given us a competitive advantage that our whole entire team, I'm literally the only one that knows like very little Spanish. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me about how you started to virtualize your business, what kind of forced that, and what exactly do your VAs do?
Pain is what forced that, right? Everything, all change is usually backed by some sort of pain. And it was drilled into me over and over again. I'm like, you can't. Because the one thing is with the cleaning, with residential cleaning, there's a lot of cash involved for me, right? Because I've been scrappy. I haven't always dotted every I and crossed every T, and I was like, whatever, if I can get away with it. And like I'm moving away from that now because I didn't think I could scale away from cash, but I realized that was a mindset thing.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm scaling away from cash, I'm like, oh, maybe I can hire virtual assistants because they can't count cash, right? So I'm going to do it for that. And I gave an in-person office manager one last shot, and I was like, nope. And within 24 hours of firing her, I hired 2 VAs. And I found them. They're in the Philippines.
Nice.
I went looking in the Philippines, and it was hard. A lot of people are like, I know Spanish, and I'm like, great. We'd get on an interview, and I'm like, I'm going to ask you all these questions, and you're just going to answer in Spanish. And I would send the interviews to somebody I knew who fluently speaks Spanish. And they were like, that's not real Spanish. That's not real Spanish. And like, we would go through it, and then I'd look at their skill set. And I hired one personal independently and one doing agency.
Wow. So your VAs are in the Philippines, though?
Yeah.
And they speak Spanish?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I've actually never even heard of that model. So that's awesome. So what do they exactly do for you right now?
So one of them, Miss Ella, she does all the phones. She's learning scheduling right now.
Nice.
They've been with me a month and a half.
Nice.
There was I had to experience a lot of pain of trying to hold on to keeping somebody here. And, but them together don't cost me what somebody here costs me.
Yeah, totally. No, totally.
But she does scheduling. She does customer communications. She's really good at my CRM. We were just on a call before this. Like I'm tweaking things because she does like by efficiency. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't really tell that client's crusty and old and won't like it there at that time. Cause they're not up yet. Like, so we're working on that. And then, I also have I started last year, like a networking thing called Let's Talk Dirty for cleaning companies on Long Island. It was residential cleaning companies. I recently partnered up with Carolyn from,
nice.
Where is she from? I was Spotless Cleaning in New Jersey.
Spotless Cleaning, yeah.
So I'm going to have lunch with Diana next Thursday or 2 Thursdays from now. And then me and Carolyn are doing Let's Talk Dirty as a networking event at her office in New Jersey. So we started that. So Chris does a lot of the back end for Let's Talk Dirty. She's doing a lot of my information grabbing to try to market commercial cleaning on Long Island. We have the Hop Hog Industrial Complex, which is the second biggest industrial complex in the United States. There's Silicon Valley, and then there's Hop Hog. So I'm set on we're going to get in there. And I got an invitation to one of their events that are coming up. So I'm going to go in there. But she's gathering all their information and putting it on a spreadsheet so I can figure out how to best market each of these clients. And that's what she does. She's my information gatherer. She does my graphics. And she's going to be helping me with the commercial aspect of marketing. Because I know with commercial, it's a lot of repeated sales, right? You have to get put in front of them for 10 years in a row. And then suddenly you have a $500,000 account. And they're like, oh, why didn't we think of you? Well, because you wanted the cheaper people for the last 5 years. And finally you're done.
The pain was finally good enough to give Jean Marie and Shore to Shore a call.
Yeah. And what's good is I sell easy. I know that. I've learned to smile and do that girl thing. And it gets me in conversations that I used to not be able to get in before I learned how to play on that respectfully. Right?
Okay.
Because there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. And
I think let's dive into that actually a little bit. So you said you sell easily. You do that girl thing. Talk to me about it. Talk. What's the girl thing? What's the sales sauce? Give it to me.
There's not a single person, guy or girl, that doesn't speak to me and was like, "You're great," and I'm like, "Great, I know, because I know how to do this. I know how to tap into the I'm a mom. I know how to tap into I rode the struggle bus, right? I know how to. Not only am I a mom here, ready? I can tell you really quick. It's really cool because I get to connect the human to human, and they're like, oh, and by the way, you own a business. Let me give you a shot because I support who you are. Like, that's what it is. It's a lot of the girl thing. My friend says, like, he's like, you have Kavorka. And I was like, I don't care what it is. I'm not sleeping with you, but you guys can all think that I will. But, because he's a guy, and, like, every girl is like, oh, I'm going to fuck him. I'm like, you're really not. He can just let you think that, so he gets what he wants. He's a real estate broker. Gets him lots of deals. But him and I have, like, talked about this. He's going to hate me if he ever listens to this. But, so we talked about that, and then, but there's that, and, like, I know how to present myself in a way where you're like, wow, look at you and all that you've done, right? Like, and I'm highlighting the things I used to feel shameful about. And that was a big personal journey. Like, I used to be ashamed that, like, I was a single mom. I used to be ashamed that, like, I've been to jail and all this other stuff. But, like, it's been a decade. I've completely turned my whole life around. And there was, the same judge that took my kids away awarded me custody of foster children. Like, what? I'm a foster parent.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's the comeback story. It's the comeback story that you're talking about. I want to, when you talk about you're presentable and you can sell, there's something that I heard actually this morning on another podcast, and it's that you tell facts, you sell stories. And I kind of like that. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I love Jean Marie's story. Like, that's going to be the juice of this podcast, right? Is the story. We can sit up here and we can talk operations, we can talk scaling, but at the end of the day, like, people latch to the story, and that's what ultimately sells yourself. So I would encourage anyone asking, because everyone has a story. It's about, one, are you the hero of your own story, and do you know how to sell that story to someone? And it's just about connection at the end of the day. Like, I knew the first 4 minutes of talking to you, Jean Marie, that, like, this was going to be an awesome podcast because of your story. I knew that there was some substance there. So I think it's awesome that you sell about it. You also said something interesting. You said the things you used to be shameful of, you're now public about. And to people listening, like, so, like, it'd be really easy to run from your past or try to lock that in and all that. But to you kind of, like, uplift that and highlight that, and it's getting in front of the objection before it ever arrives at your doorstep. So yeah. I think that's badass. I want to go back a few questions ago. I asked how you hire. You said you hire people in recovery. Some people hire part-time people, like moms just wanting to get out of the house. Other people really hire heavy in the Hispanic community. Everyone kind of has their own model. Let's talk about your hiring, but also, like, the leadership that comes with that. You got someone that's 4 months sober. You're giving them you're giving them a shot, just like you had the shot. What type of, like, leadership do you give them? Like, obviously, you teach them the job, you train them, all that good stuff, but you have to give them something, some sort of juice to latch onto. What's your leadership style?
So it's a lot of, like, personal growth is a big part of it, and promoting that and helping them with that, and it puts them in positions. Like, I lead by example. Like, there's nothing I will ask you to do that I don't do. Are you guys like how I lead? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because, like, that's how I lead, like, by example. I'm like, my biggest thing is, because I'm down and dirty. I will always, like, there's that part of me that is, like, dirty, scrappy, grungy. Like, I got that in me still. I might clean up well now, and I might live this really polished life, but, like, I know how to get there, and I am not afraid to get there now. And my staff knows that there's nothing I would ask of them that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And I think that gets me really far, because there's moments, like Saturday, for instance, I love hoarding jobs. If I can make my entire company hoarding without having to be a restoration company to attract them, because that's who people call, and I don't want to go that route, but if I could do all hoarding, I would be happier than anything else, because I just love it. And we were doing a hoarding job, and we were 3 days in, they were exhausted, and they call me and they're like, we need to come back one more day. I was like, no, I don't think you do. Like, I don't think you do. And I am all dressed up. I just did a huge fundraiser event I've been working on, which is another thing we could talk about in a minute. But so I'm in, like, cowboy boots and, like, a nice sweater and jeans. And I'm like, okay. And I go in and I'm literally in mouse shit in my good clothes. I'm like, we're going to get this job done now. And like, I wrapped up, I wish they could have got pictures of me. I'm literally in expensive cowboy boots, like mopping a floor. Like, we're going to get out of here. The job's getting done today. I'm not going to ask you to work late unless I'm willing to do it myself. We did a move and clean for a high name person in the area. And I'm like, this is another cleaning. I was like, I need this done tonight. So at 5 o'clock at night, after I was making dinner, I stopped dinner, had my kid take over for the rest of the kids. And I went and I worked till midnight with them. Like, I don't have to ever clean again, but I will never ask you to go above and beyond if I'm not willing to be there right next to you. And because they see that, they're willing to give me their all.
Totally. No, I think that's great. I think leading by example is highly overrated. There's this big push, and I get it. Trust me, as a business owner myself, like, you want to put layers and delegate everything in between you and your clients. And there's truth. There's a fuck ton of truth to that, right? But there's also some truth to, like, so I'm in sales and we hire sales reps all across the board, right? I can't tell a sales rep, hey, I haven't cold called in 10 years. No, I'll pick up that phone and I'll show you how to cold call and I'll show you how to get a sale. And like, you can't be above it. And I do think there's a sense of humility and appreciation from people that are under you that see their leader kind of do it. So that's awesome. Have you had any, so like, I want to talk, like, again, staying kind of on this topic here. And I am curious about the fundraising and charity work that you do. Someone's in recovery, relapse is a part of recovery. When that happens, how do you handle it? What's that look like? Just talk to me about that dynamic.
So usually, before it happens. It's a very gray area because I hire people where they have to agree that no matter what, they'll take a drug test. I don't need a reason. Like, if you come in and I don't like the way you're wearing your hair, you're willing to take a drug test. And that's the biggest thing is I buy a lot of drug tests. Because, like, that's necessary. But sometimes it's just the attitude, or they're 10 minutes late to work. So, like, you can just tell before it even happens that it's going to happen. And because I have so many people who are in recovery, we are all attuned to it. And we kind of know. We kind of know where I'm like, oh, you got to be in at 8 instead of 8:30. And they're like, fine. I'm like, we're going to watch you. We're going to watch you and see what happens. And stuff like that. And I've had people where, like, I had a girl, she literally picked up her paycheck. Oh my God, this is good. I'm never going to post this on my social media.
Yeah, you are.
She literally picked up her paycheck, went and bought drugs. Like, she relapsed that night, and I found her on the floor in my office.
Jeez. Like when you say found her on the floor in your office. Okay.
Up heroin and nodded out.
Oh my God. So, like, when that happens, obviously, like, so you give these people a chance, and then you're hoping that they honor themselves, recovery, and their word. If they do pop hot, then is that like an automatic dismissal, or like, what's that look like?
No, they don't have a job.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. I think that's an interesting model. And I think it's awesome that you do kind of have that accountability of, like, no reason necessary. If I just feel like it, you're being drug tested, but it's not just for, like, the protection of your company. It's also for their own good as well. Talk to me about some of those success stories of your employees.
So I have my top cleaner. She's 5 years sober. She's been on me since she was 4 months sober, and I almost didn't hire her because I had hired some rough people, and I was like, no, yeah, but I have a year sober before I hire you. Like, I started that rule. I'm like, we're going to go to a year because that's less people that are, like, not really taking it serious. And I was sponsoring somebody who was like, hey, I have this sponsee. She's great. And I'm like, And she comes, like, walking down the road in a backpack, and I was like, I don't really know about this, but she's cute. Like, she seems like she was just, like, an all-American girl who just made some poor choices. And I hired her, and I was like, I'm going to keep her close. And at this point, I was still cleaning on a daily basis. I had my son already. He was little. So because he has a lot of medical issues, he came to work with me for a year and a half. And so I would go. It would be me, her, and the baby. Everywhere we went, me, her, and the baby. She doesn't do kids at all. Like, doesn't do kids at all. But what it did was it made her, she was able to pull all of my weight. If I had to step away, she can get the job done in the same time frame. She knows how to do things fast and efficiently. And so all the time that we spent together, because I was cautious when I hired her, has made her we're targeting to get her out of the cleaning. Like, that's my next business step, is to get her away from cleaning. I just don't have enough work for her on the back end to keep her working full time and not cleaning right now. So like, we're at this gray area. Because I have like the VAs that do so much, and like ordering can be done in 5 minutes. Like, what are you going to do for 40 hours a week? But eventually I want to make her director of operations. As I go further into commercial, she'll be that quality control person. But right now I have a bunch of jobs that takes 2 hours. You can go walk 5 offices and like, you're done for the month, you know?
Love it. And now she's got 5 years sober. She's got a clear professional growth path. Amazing. Yeah.
She's awesome. And I have another girl, she just celebrated a year sober the other day. I hired her 4 months sober, and I was like, she was a little bit slow. We were like, we don't know about this. She is my rising star. Like, I always say, if I had more Laurens and more Caitlins, I would have a $20 million residential cleaning company on Long Island. Like,
love it. I love that.
More of them.
Yeah.
And I would like, she worked till midnight the other night. We did a track. It was a pickleball place, and they had a mezzanine with a track, so you couldn't get a floor scrubber up there because they weigh too much. There was no elevator. So Sunbelt was like, hey, use an iMop. I was like, great, but the batteries didn't recharge. So she literally was there, like, with the shop vac, inch by inch, trying to get as much as she could while the batteries charged, and worked until midnight to make sure that this job was presentable when they came in the next day. And
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I think having that type of loyalty comes down to, again, people bought into your story, they follow your leadership, and then they buy into the company, right? And then they feel a part of it. And if you can get your people to feel like they're a part of something, because ultimately they are, then you're going to fucking win, and you're going to win big, and you're going to win with the right people, which is amazing. I want to talk about
really quick, so that
please.
ties into the charity when it comes to your people being on board, right? And I've learned this more so recently. I've always kind of done it, but I've learned how to leverage it. Is people buy into what I do. I get so many clients because of the work I do in the community.
Okay, let's talk about it.
I fundraised and gathered stuff to build, there's videos all over my social media, 400 Easter baskets and 150 hams, right? And we just did this giveaway event through a local nonprofit right here in town, where we gave it to all the kids in the community with the Easter Bunny and a bounce house. And like, it started, I had an idea 2 years ago. Post-COVID, everybody was doing meal trains and this, and there's always Christmas and Thanksgiving. I was like, right, but Easter comes. These kids like get the Easter Bunny in their head in school, and then mom and dad who can't afford Christmas or Thanksgiving, they're not affording Easter. Here's a chocolate bunny, right? I still do that. I have money and I still, here's a chocolate bunny.
Sure.
That's just, my kids are older. But, so I found something that was needed, and I got involved, and like, now we're doing 2 spring cleanups in the area, right? It takes me 3 hours of my day. I'll pay my staff to go do it. They won't volunteer. Some of them might volunteer. Some of them want to get paid. Whatever, go clean, right? Because we clean and we get that coverage in the community with the local politicians taking pictures of us and the other local nonprofits taking pictures of us. Now we're all over social media, and it's like, oh, you're that cleaning company. I stand behind what you do. I'm going to hire you for my office. I've gotten a lot of work like that. I'm going to hire you for my house. Or I'm going to tell you about my sister about you. Like, the stuff I do in the community and the nonprofit work, like, I just find things people believe in. We did a pet drive in the winter because we had like 2 months of dead time. And that girl, Caitlin, who is 5 years sober, was like, why don't we ever do the pets? I was like, fine, we'll do the pets. So we did the pets. I still have dog food and Dawn dish soap and chew toys on my couch from the second round of collections that I forgot to drop off. Like, I keep doing that. And then we do back to school and we do the Christmas, and like, we just get involved, and everyone's like, oh, Shorter Shore Cleaning, you're that company that did this, and you're that company that did that. And like, so I sell my story, but I also sell what we do. And like, so what if we come in and we do like a B+ cleaning job some days, right? Because people are human. But like what we stand behind and what we believe in, they're like, okay, great, just do better next time. I'm not going to fire you.
It's crazy. Crazy what accountability does, and just being authentic. And you're very authentic. I think that like that jumps through the screen. I always want to talk to the listener. I think what you just said is awesome, and it comes from a really heartfelt place. It's called making profit with a purpose, right? So like when you're giving back to the community, in that moment, you're not thinking this is going to benefit my business. You're like, I'm going to make 40 kids Easter's better, or whatever the case may be, right? And that's fucking awesome. But then I'm going to be in the spotlight just organically because of the impact I'm having in the community, and it benefits my business. If you're listening to this, ask yourself, how are you involved in the community? How are you in the forefront? And think about how you can give back what you're passionate about. And don't do it for your business. Do it because you have a heart for it, and what you put out there ultimately comes back. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. It's helped you pick up some, get some commercial opportunities. I think that's amazing. I have a question for you though, and it stems to this. What motivates Jean Marie today? Like, what motivates you today versus when you were 18 versus when you were 24 is totally different. But today, as it stands, what motivates you?
So that's a really good question. And I didn't have an answer for you 3 months ago, right? And people are like, what is your why? And I'm like, I reached every goal I ever set. Like, I am living a life better than I could have ever imagined, and better than 99.9% of the people that I've ever interacted with outside business, right? Like, I am doing so well, people get uncomfortable. I've had to like learn how to like level up and like shed myself of relationships, right? And I don't say that from a point of egotism. I say it because I didn't know to think that I could get bigger or I could do better. I remember someone's like, you should set your goal for $5 million. I was like, I don't know about all that. Like, I don't know who you're talking to, but I can't do $5 million in sales. And he's like, no, you can. He reverse engineered it. He goes, that's $13,000 a day. You know how to make $13,000. And I was like, I do. I can do that in 2 days or like in 4 days. He's like, great. So learn how to do it in a day. Now suddenly you're a $5 million company. And like, that made me really, really uncomfortable. And I got full of shame. And I was like, okay, we're going to look at this. And this is a very long answer to your question.
No, take your time.
I'm sharing like how I got to this point. And I remember I was sitting down. This was at like a mindset immersion thing, right? So like I had a whole bunch of people around me, like we were all going to grow and become better and whatever. And I didn't even intend on talking to this woman. She started talking to me. I was like, this is annoying. Didn't want to talk to anybody for a minute. And we got into this. And she goes, great. She goes, I want you to think about how many more people you can help if you grow your company. Because I'm like, I have a house better than, I have a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. I have a built-in pool and a half-acre property. Like, I could have never imagined this, right? And I own 5 cars and, like, all this stuff. And, like, this is a life more than I could have. I was homeless 10 years ago. I was homeless. Like, I was okay to have shoes that didn't have holes in them at one point. That made me happy, you know? And she just, like, when she simplified, she goes, imagine the people you can help. And like a clear thing about that, the Easter baskets, when I first did, I did 100. Last year, I did 100. This year, after I realized like I can use my business as a platform to help more people, I was like, we're going to quadruple it. And we did 400 Easter baskets. And like the whole time I'm panicking because like I have a fear of scarcity still, that scrappy part of me. And like it all came together. And like that's what I do. Like, as I grow the company, I can hire more women in recovery or men, right? Because commercial is more men. I can hire more men and women in recovery. I can give them the same opportunities I've given my existing employees. I can provide mentorship human to human. I can provide job opportunity. I can provide job growth. I can provide more opportunity for my community. I can open a company. I can move my company to a second state, which I'm working on right now, right? I want to go into New Hampshire because I have family up there and there's a market, and my VA did all the research for that for me, right? And I was like, here, I want all this data and I want you to tell me what county we're starting in. And she did it all. I didn't have to do anything. And it cost me no time. It just cost me like $500, you know? It was cool. And, but so we did that. Now I can go into another company and now I can take an X percentage of my profits because that's my business model. And I'll be like, those percentages are going to go into that local community. And like, what can we do there to help that community? And so that's my why now. Like, my kids live such a good, nice life. My foster son is going to have such a great life. Like, I don't need a whole lot of stuff. Like I say, I have all these cars, but like, I like my Honda Pilot. I don't want to be bougie and drive a Porsche like other people. That's great for them. They've earned that. I like my Honda Pilot. I like my house in a zip code that people are like, you live there? And I'm like, yeah, but I live in a nice area, you know? I like all that. I don't need this grandiose life. So growth to me is now, how can I help other people and provide opportunities for other people? And that's really wholeheartedly what my business model is and what my why is how can I help more people?
I think that's awesome. And I believe you, number one, and thank you for having that servant type of heart. But number two is you're also not the first person to say that on this show. Actually, the most recent person that said something similar is someone we've already talked about, Diana, with Babco Services. She said, at some point you make enough money to where that doesn't really matter, and it comes about the people and how you can help making the people's lives around you like better and uplifting them. Right. And I think that's really well said. And I kind of got a similar vibe when you were talking right there. And I think that's amazing. I have two last things for you here. Two last things. First thing here is, how important has it been for you to invest in you, and how do you invest in yourself? How do you continue to grow personally to get the best version of you? Talk to me about some of the things you continue to do as a leader to develop.
Coaching in and out of business is the biggest thing. I have worked with Tony Robbins coaches. I have more Tony Robbins coaches in my future. I've done a lot of, that was at Business Mastery that I did all that talking, and like I figured out what my why really was. Tomorrow starts another 5 days. I could be a whole commercial for him, right? We have the second part of Business Mastery starts tomorrow, and for 5 days I'll be at my laptop at my friend's cottage because her and I are locking ourselves away from kids for 5 days, and we're doing it. And so I do that, but then I also have like a coach that's based on Long Island who just works with female entrepreneurs, and I am the highest grossing member of her coaching group right now. And she's worked with people that gross more, but hers is more focused on like startup companies, more or less, like under 200,000, 300,000. And like now, like I'm bigger and I get to come in with a different perspective on things, And it was because I said to her, like I talked to her about me doing the Tony Robbins Business Mastery and like working with her, and it was all about intention. Like, what was my intention? Like, I had to realize that like no matter how much time I spend at work, I'm not responsible for my kids' feelings. Because I'm like, I think that they're going to think I'm a bad mom because I work so much. But reality is like, I just drove to Arkansas, to Tennessee, and back with my 14-year-old because I wanted to. I don't ever suggest anybody spend that much time driving in 4 days, but like, I got to do that. And so I'm like, I take those little breaks for life. Like, I went to Cleaning and Cocktails. I drove down to DC on Monday. I was there for Thursday night. I drove back to New York. Friday night, I drove to Arkansas, and then I drove home Tuesday. So I literally drove for a week and a half, basically. And like, whatever. I took time away from my family to grow in business, because anybody who's not involved with Ricky and all of them and Michael, like, they're amazing people and they're amazing resources, and they, like me, just want to help anybody. That's how I met Diana there last year. And so I went down there. That was my investment in business. And then I invested in my relationship with the child I've struggled the most to bond with, because she is so unlike me. And I've always struggled, and I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to go spend this time together, and we're going to bond. And like, by the end of the trip, I'm like, I'm going to hit her. But I love her. Because she's 14, and like, they're assholes. But from a loving place. And yeah, so that's how I do it, coaching. I also usually go for weekly back massages during work hours, which my staff can sometimes get resentful about when they can't reach me. And I'm like, no, my phone's off. And I have my little ladies, and they walk all over me, and it's amazing. And I take that time for me too.
I think that's huge. And I think a lot of times as business owners, especially when we're in go mode, we forget about that. My business partner, who ended up not joining us on this call, so maybe we'll have to do round 2 here, because I know he would have dove deep with some great questions. But he always says you have to be the best version of you to have the best version of your company. And I believe that. So if you guys are listening to this, ask yourself how you're investing in you, what that transformation looks like. Jean Marie, I would like to personally invite you to our Cleaning Profits event. It's kind of a mastermind transformational event with other cleaning owners. Again, Diana, 3rd time's a charm coming up. Rumor has it she might actually be like a roundtable leader there this year. That's September 12th through the 14th here in Denver, Colorado. So, and also anyone listening to this, you guys know where to find us, and our listeners know about the event. But I think it's awesome. Your journey, your transformation, and really now your purpose. It's big, and I think it's relatable, and I think people are going to be able to relate to that. My last question for you, last and certainly not least, what's one piece of advice that you got for someone listening today that might be in the mud, that might be in the thick of things right now in their cleaning business? What, owner to owner, what would you like to say to that person?
To embrace the yuckiness. Like, I love the word yucky, but like, it's all growing pains. Like, there's no growth without some discomfort. And, like, I thought that, like, when I hit those walls, like, the company was failing. I remember my first couple of years of business, people were like, oh, you own a cleaning company? I was like, yeah, if only I could get rid of the employees. Like, 'cause I don't want to be a boss. And I would say that. And, like, now I think back, and I'm like, there's no company without employees. But for a long time, like, I hated HR. I still don't like it. It's so uncomfortable for me to fire somebody. But I also understand that, like, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I had this one girl, and she was so toxic to everything. But she was my first full-time. She was that girl that drove me around when I didn't have a license. She was the girl who ran things when my son was sick, and I was sitting in the hospital. So, like, as she spiraled downward, I felt this loyalty to her that I had to keep her, not realizing all I was attracting was not only toxic employees, but I was attracting toxic clients. So the whole culture of the company sucked until I finally let her go, and everybody was like, thank you, God. Like, it's about time you finally let her go. Because, like, it was a year and a half where I was like, I don't know. Like, she really showed up for me. I shouldn't turn my back on her. And, like, thank God I got rid of her. And, like, yesterday, I grew a backbone with a client, one of my first clients. It was uncomfortable, but I was like, hey, you don't pay me enough. You don't value what we do. I appreciate that you kept us going through the whole pandemic. Like, that's why I was holding on to her, because she was one of the few people that was like, we're not shutting down shop with the residential. And I was like, I appreciate it, but you don't value us. And you owe me money. You won't give me a credit card to run. And until you clean this up, we're not coming. She's like, well, and I was like, until you clean this up, I'm canceling tomorrow's cleaning. We will not be there. Don't expect us. And we clean for her weekly. And she was somebody who my staff was like, we don't want to go there. Ever since you increased her price, she keeps adding work. She expects us to do all this stuff. And like, I was just like, we're not coming. And like, that in itself, I'm like ready to increase everybody's prices again. Like, I'm on fire. Like, if I can like do that, I can do anything. So it's embracing that uncomfortability and become willing to grow, because like we as business owners are the only thing holding our businesses back. Like our mindset and our thoughts that we apply to situations are the only thing, like it's the only thing standing in the way of where we are now and where we want to be. And I've had to experience that with a lot of pain. So embrace it.
So well said. Jean Marie, thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you after this show?
So my personal Instagram is Let's Talk Dirty. There's an underscore between the T and the Y.
We'll link it. We'll find it and link it.
Yeah, so it's like Let's Talk Dirt Y. I love it. My personal trainer came up with it. And then there's also Short to Short Cleaning, which is the company's page.
Awesome. So. Hey guys, follow Jean Marie. Amazing interview. Thank you so much. And we'll have to do a second one, but this time with Angel Sandoval. So I'm glad that you guys got to connect, and thank you for your time today, Jean Marie.
Thank you.